how many of you have heard that this is a standard tree? Probably most of us have heard that. This is a standard tree. That term means that, you know, it can be anywhere. By the way, how big is a standard apple tree get? Okay, just throw a 30 feet in diameter or bigger. Okay, so if this tree is going to be about 70 feet to 100 to 100%, 70% to 100%. So 70% of 30 is what? 21. So that tree is going to be about 21 feet to 30 feet in diameter. Okay, this semi-dwarf tree is 30% to 70%. So that semi-dwarf tree could be anywhere from about 9 feet to 21 feet. And they still consider that a semi-dwarf tree. Okay? And then you've heard the term dwarf. This is a dwarf tree. And that dwarf tree might be something that's, you know, 6 feet tall to, you know, 9, 10 feet tall. And you're right, it depends. This is apples. Cherries is even, you know, when we talk about a standard cherry tree, it's even bigger than that. Okay? So,
Is that diameter or height?
both. I mean, if you look at it, you know, those big trees, that they'll be, you know, 30 feet in diameter and can reach, under ideal conditions, 30 feet tall. Okay? So if you look at, again, a website here, maybe this is from a local nursery, maybe it's just out on the internet, you're looking at stuff. How big is that Fuji tree going to get? Doesn't tell us, right? Okay, so if I'm looking at this website or this nursery right here, how many of you guys are going to go buy apples from there? You know, apple trees from there? Okay, what if I'm the nurseryman and I say, hey, you know what? This Gala tree right here, it's a semi-dwarf tree. How many of you guys are going to question me about it? I hope you do. Okay, I hope you question. That's why I'm telling you to look at that. How about if I give you this information? How big is that tree going to get?
Pretty big.
Yeah.
Okay. MM111 rootstock, if you look at our chart right there, it's a standard tree. So it's going to be a big tree. It's going to be that 28 to 30 foot in diameter tree. Anything that might have this rootstock, an MM111, 106, or a seedling next to it is going to be a big tree. But how do you know that? If you were to walk onto the nursery and you saw that on the tag, MM111, how would you know how big that's going to be? You wouldn't. You got to do your homework, okay? Take the chart. Okay, semi-dwarf, they might have something like an M7, MLA7, M26, M9, Bud9, G11, G30. Okay? And finally, we have the dwarf stuff right here. Now, I have the box around dwarf because most of our dwarf rootstock materials is brittle. And so you graft the apple's net onto it, you've got to have some sort of a support system, whether that's a pole, whether that's wires, whether that's tied to the fence, up against the shed, something to support it, because once you get a fruit load on that, the winds come up, and that's brittle, it'll bust it off. And then you get start all over again with it. So if you're looking at dwarf materials, make sure you have some sort of way to support it. Okay?
Does that mean that dwarf are the ideal to use for like espalier?
Yep, most of your dwarf type stuff will be in some of these, and they'll use them for the espalier, and that's why you see them onto the wires and that. Yeah. Okay?
So do you need to support those throughout their whole life?
Yep.
Then? And
Yep.
what's the best kind of support coming on different angles, or just one support thing?
I don't really have a preference for that.
Oh.
You know, I mean, it can be, you know, just some posts at the end that you've got wires that you're tying it to. It can be a post right next to it. There's lots of different ways you can do it. Just support them. Yep, just support them.
So it's the rootstock that determines the height,
Yes.
size of the tree. So any tree can be, depending on what it's grafted on, that's the
Yes. Okay. So the question was, is it's the rootstock that depends, that dictates how big that tree is going to get, and that's correct. So I could take a Red Delicious apple and graft it onto one of these rootstocks and it's going to be big. I could take that same variety of Red Delicious apple and graft it onto one of these and it's going to be smaller. It could be anywhere from 12 feet to 21 feet big, depending upon which one of these I select. I could put that same one on one of these, and now I've got a 6, 8 foot, 9 foot tall tree. And it's all because of the rootstock. Okay?
Step over apples and step like really work, or is it just kind of
Sorry, what's
like step over apples? I see them advertised and like, oh, that sounds like a really good idea, but I don't know anyone who has it.
step over apple? I'm not familiar with that.
Quality is really low.
Oh.
So,
Yeah, I mean, all they're doing is just bringing them down like that and doing them, yeah, that's fine. As long as you can maintain. Realize that when you do the espalier type stuff with it, that increases the amount of pruning and support and things like that you've got to do to those varieties, okay, over the life of the tree. In the picture right here, this is what we, some of the new things that you're seeing coming out on the market. These are called columnar, or what's the other term? Columnade apples. And instead of it being the rootstock with these, it's actually the variety. So it's a mutation, it's a spur type that somebody's come across out in, either the research orchard or wherever, that these apples, they'll get about 6 feet tall. They don't branch out wide, and they stay pretty much about like that. Now, am I going to harvest bushels and bushels of apples off of that? No. Am I going to get 10, 12, 20 apples? Yeah. But the cool thing about it is you can put those about 18 inches apart. So just think of your table right here. I could put one right here, one fairly close right there. I put another one right there, and within a 2 foot square radius right there, I've got 4 apples. Now there's about 4 to 6 varieties of them that are out there. It's not the Honeycrisp, it's not the Gala. They're pretty specific varieties, but it's something that's new out there. The other thing that's cool about them is maybe you've got grandma, grandpa, somebody like that grew up, had apples, orchard, whatever, and now they're in a rest home. You can put them in a large pot, and they could put them on their back porch or something like that, and still, have that lifestyle that they enjoyed.
Are all the nurseries selling those now? No?
It depends. I would say if they're carrying a fair amount of fruit, trees in the orchard, in the nursery, you might find them. If it's a smaller nursery, probably not. They are a little more pricey. You'll probably anywhere from $40 to $80 for that style of tree. Okay.
Once again, you called them columnar or
Columnar.
columnar?
Yeah,
What was
it's
the
kind
other
of
term that you used?
columnade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spell that, please.
Columnar. COLUMNAR. Okay. And so that's apples. There's other rootstocks that they graft cherries to. Apples by far has the most rootstock that you can select from, and that's because anybody here have peaches? Okay, most of our peaches are standard size peach trees. How big do they get? Yeah, they might be pushing 20 if you don't do a lot of pruning that on 15 to 20. So they're not like the big standard apple tree, and so there just hasn't been the research done with peaches like there has been with these big apples and cherries and those trees, okay? So any questions in about rootstocks before we walk in? Because now we've done our research, we're going to actually go shopping. We're going to go on a shopping spree. Okay? No questions? Okay. So we've kind of done our homework now. I say buy your trees from a reputable nursery. How many of you have had the experience where you've, after Christmas, the mail catalogs start rolling in and we see the pictures and we order all this stuff and it comes and it's just not the quality that we thought we were going to get? Or maybe we bought the tree and it said this and it really turned out to be that, and we've wasted 5-10 years of our doing it, okay? And we just didn't get what we wanted to. Yes?
Sometimes the tag falls off and they put it back on the wrong tree.
Yep. not here. Okay? The other thing I like is you can go And you can get the trees when you want them. The other thing that I like to do is I will wander, sorry, I'm going to set that right there, is that if this is in a pot, okay, pretend this is in a pot with me, I can pull this tree out and I can look at the tree and I can say, man, okay, it's got some branches down here, but it really doesn't have much right here. Does everyone see that? Okay, and I pull the next tree out and okay, it's got something here, but again, I've got to get, okay, which is the best one? I can, and if they've got 30 trees, I might pull all 30 of those trees out and look at them until I find the perfect tree that I want. But I can also, as I'm looking at it, I can look for disease. I can look for, broken branches. I can inspect the trees. And if it's something I want, I buy it. And if it's not, I walk away, put them all back and I walk away and go to another place and look for them. Okay? Yes? Sometimes that's trial and error. Other times I would say talk to your neighbors, people in your class right here and say, hey, here's where I buy from. Most times if people have had a good experience, they'll sometimes tell you if they've had a bad experience, they'll really tell you about that. Okay? So word of mouth's a good one.
Oh, like bare root stout trees.
Okay? Bare root versus, in a pot or in a burlap or things like that. Kind of have to be careful with that. Again, I've had certain trees that I'm looking for, specimen type trees, that I'm not going to find at a local nursery and that. And so I've had to do some searching, talk to some people to find that right one, and I've been very happy with them. The other thing is realize that a lot of those bare root trees and plants, they dug those last fall, and they've been sitting in a warehouse shelf in a climate-controlled conditions, and hopefully they've been misting them and keeping those, maybe they got them in some sawdust or something that's keeping those roots wet. But if you get somebody that, isn't doing their job, not paying attention to things, it can go bad in a hurry. And so all of a sudden you get a tree that maybe the roots have been dried for several months sitting in the warehouse, and they put it in a bag with some wet peat moss, and then when you get it, it's kind of like, that tree's dead. It's not going to work for me. So, so a lot of it's trial and error. Okay, I hate to say it. Yes.
Which nursery do you buy yours at?
I've bought stuff locally. I bought some stuff at J&J up in Layton area. I bought some stuff up at Valley Nursery in Uena. I bought some stuff at up closer to me in Brigham City. I'll hit. Like I said, a lot of it you can tell when you start looking at trees and you see the quality of the trees. And if you just see a lot of broken branches, missing stuff like this, they're just not the quality. So I won't buy stuff there from them. Yeah.
Any nursery that's going to guarantee them for the whole season is probably pretty reputable.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing about it is you want to get you a good tree, because you put it in the ground and it doesn't come out, and you go back and get another tree and you put it in the ground and that one doesn't work. You've wasted 2 months, 3 months of time. Maybe you've let it try and grow a full season. It just didn't work out. So now you're a year out. That's another year that I have to wait. So yeah, there's things like that. Okay.
I have 2 peach trees and that came with the house, and one of them looks a lot like one of your branches where it's bare on the side that faces into the wind.
Uh-huh.
And so it's obviously not going to grow any branches that direction, but it's making the tree off kilter. And so how do I handle that on the 14-foot tree?
Okay. Save that here in just a second when we look at it and I start into kind of training that tree, and I think I'll give you an idea as to how to make that work for you, okay? And those younger trees, you maybe have that shorter tree, maybe not quite as large as a caliper tree, pay $35 for it. You got a $150 tree over here. Which one are you going to buy? Why?
It'll grow better.
Yeah, these young trees are just like teenagers. Okay, they'll eat you out of house and home, and you put the two trees in, and within 5 years you can't tell the difference between them. This big tree is going to go through a lot more transplant shock. This young tree is going to be the one I'd choose. Okay, let's look at some variety recommendations. And again, I don't have, these are not complete lists, and some of you look up here and say, oh yeah, but they're some of the common ones. Somebody want to grab the light? Sorry, where did Mike run to? So pears, the Bartlett is the typical one that we use for canning in our area. It's also anything that is blue. On my list, sorry, Mike made them black and white. Chew him out. Anything that's blue is self-fruitful. And sorry, these nectarines should be in blue as well. Okay. So if you want a Bartlett pear, it's self-fruitful. I only need one of them. I'm going to get fruit. Sweet cherries, Stella Lapins, and Sweetheart. Those three are self-fruitful, so you only need one of those trees. Tart cherry, common one that we have. If you're looking at pie fillings and things like that, Montmorency is a very common one there. Yes? No. Nope. Okay. And then you get down here at the bottom. So somebody's asking, what's a late variety of apricot? Moorpark and Tilton are two late blooming varieties of apricots. Okay, so if you're looking in the market for an apricot tree, look for those two. Yes?
Can I ask you a question on one of the pear varieties? I think is it Camise? Is that how you pronounce it? So I have one of those in the Bartlett to pollinate it. The Camise, they don't ripen on the tree, right? None
of the pears you want to ripen on the tree.
But the Camise, don't they take like an extended period of refrigeration or something before they get ripe? And that's what my internet research said.
Yeah, typically with pears and that, you do not want to let them ripen on the tree. You will actually, if you watch the pears, they will kind of go from a green to kind of a limeish type yellow, and that's when you want to pick them. The other way you can tell is pick one off, slice it open, look for the dark seeds in there. That's typically what they will tell you, and then you're take them off the tree, and they will ripen in a cool, dry spot for you. Okay, so yeah, if you let pears ripen on a tree, they'll be mush, and that it's not the flavor. Okay, so that's some of the. If you look at peaches, again, a very short list of peaches. Box Elder County growers, they will have some of them will have as many as 40 different varieties of peaches. Once they start, taking peaches to the fruit stands, they want to have peaches from, that date clear until the end of October. Fresh peaches. And so some of you may look there and say, oh, my favorite one's not there. On this peach list, anything that's in red, so the Reliance, Polly, Intrepid, Contender, Flame, and Fury, those are Zone 4 peaches. So if you got family that live up into southern Idaho or Morgan or some of the higher mountain elevations in that, those are some Zone 4 peaches that you could try. When we get down here to the apples, so if you're, again, a short growing season for apples, Lodi, Yellow Transparent, Ginger Gold, clear over to the Gale are kind of some of the earliest apple varieties that we have. Anybody familiar? What do we use the Lodi and the Yellow Transparent for? Anybody have those trees? They can be a pollinator, but they're kind of a applesauce. If you don't want to grow them for a fresh apple eating, okay? And then I kind of have some of my favorites: Honeycrisp, Cameo, the Brayburn, Fuji, Granny Smith, and Pink Lady. Those are very long season apples. So if you're in an area that's questionable, you can try some of these, but it may be that they're not going to fully ripen every year. Okay? Yes?
What's a good pollinator for Honeycrisp?
Do your homework.
Well, I looked down there and I couldn't tell.
Honeycrisp is not. I have a Cameo, I have Johnny Gold, I have Brayburn. Those are all, they'll cross-pollinate. It's not as, Macintosh will probably work. Yeah. not a problem.
Is the red highlighted for the apples was?
These are early season apples. So if you live in, like I said, a mountainous area and that, they are very short season apples and would work there. Okay.
When's a good time to prune?
Well, pruning's coming up here in just a second.
I assume these are just varieties for this area? Because when I was living in California, they would have apples that would come in June. Is that what the short season are?
That's something like,
Fall
I
and
mean,
summer.
here the Lodi and these yellow transparents are going to be the first apples that come on, but they're not going to be near June. They'll probably be probably the latter. I mean, it depends. The latter part of July, first part of August is when you're going to start seeing
They've
those.
got some others out there.
Yeah.
Well, in California, they're
Yeah.
flowering already.
Yeah, and if you go out there now, yeah, they're way into that. So that's why some, and that's as well. For example, if you go out to the coast and that, you go up, into Washington and that, their varieties of Honeycrisp and Cameo and those will be coming on earlier than ours will, just because of their season. Okay, that they've got there. And again, there's hundreds and hundreds of varieties of apples. I don't have Jonathan, I don't have Macintosh on there because most people kind of know those. So. They do fine here. There is a really good publication that Utah State University has put out there. If you're looking for varieties of apples, I encourage you to go Google it and download it and look at it. And we kind of have a pretty good list of varieties of apples that do well here. Okay.
When you, I had an apple tree that the windstorm came up and it was full of apples. The windstorm came up, blew it over, and broke the twig down. Do I replant that, or do I cut it off, or what do I do with that?
Okay. Again, say that question. We talk here pruning and that, and I think we'll address that. Okay. Yeah, pruning question. We're just about there. Yes.
Are the European plums, are they all self-pollinating?
No.
Is the Italian one self-pollinating?
If most of those are going to need cross-pollination, and that's why I kind of give you that summary chart way back when we talked about cross-pollinating. Use that, and if you're looking at getting an Italian one, go in there, because some of them will say this one is pollinated better with a Stanley or something like that. Okay, so yeah, I don't have them right here in front of me. Go do your homework. Okay, so this is the demonstration orchard that I'm kind of in charge of at Kaysville at the Botanical Center there. And what we've tried to do with this is there's been quite a bit of interest in some of the heirloom varieties of apples. And so we actually have grapes over here on the far side. And then we have 2 rows of apples that are heirloom varieties that we've put in there. We also have some of the modern varieties of apples. So some of the new Blondie, Jonna Prince, some of these ones are you're starting to see kind of in the market. The idea behind this is that as a homeowner, hopefully you can, if you've never tasted an Arkansas black apple, but somebody says it's really good, you can come, buy the fruit, taste it, see if you like it, because the last thing you want to do is get this tree, have it be in production, and decide, what, that Arkansas black or that Lodi apple just isn't what I wanted. And so we're going to actually have the fruit, we'll have taste testings and things like that. The other thing we have in here is we have a rootstock demonstration. So we've got Golden Delicious apples that are grafted onto 12 different varieties of rootstock. So we can see from that 6-foot tree clear to that big standard tree, all because, the size of those trees just because of the rootstock. Yes, Mike.
How long will it take before you really see, are you 10 years out before you really see the effects of those?
I think we'll probably, you will start to see some of it probably in about another 4 or 5 years, because they're going to really start taking off. These trees are some that we grafted ourselves, and this is their second leaf. So they're still pretty much a twig there, but we've got them out there. Most of the apples and the peaches have been in there for, this is their 3rd leaf, so their 3rd year growing there, and then we're starting to we should have good production on most of the stuff this year. So it's open 24 hours a day, so it's really going to be a fun thing to have. It's also where we'll do some of our pruning demonstrations and that as well. So we invite you to come up and look at that. So This is, you know, those heirloom apple varieties that we have on site. We also have, like I said, some of the newer ones. You can see, you know, Blondie, Cameo, Gibson Golden, John of Prince, Zester, and some of the newer stuff right there. And that's the apples that we have there. We also have these varieties of peaches. With the peaches, we kind of have, let's see, where's it at? Arctic Gem is a white variety of peach. We have, so a donut shape in the Saturn one there. And then we have some other ones there that, so just kind of some interesting ones that you may not be familiar with that we've got planted there. That's the peaches. We also have some pears and some of the apriums and plumcots and pluots. And then we have some different plums, both European and Japanese plums planted there. So hopefully within about, you know, the next 2 to 5 years, really a cool site to come look at. Yes?
What are the numbers on the site?
This number right here, what that does is that makes reference to Red Star is kind of the standard peach variety that they compare things to. And so if it is, let's see here, okay. So if it is a minus, so like the Rising Star, it will come on 14 days earlier than the Red Star. And something like the O. Henry will be about 36 days later than the Red Star. So what we're trying to do here is show you that here's some varieties you could put in. So you could, you know, if you had a big enough place, you could put in these 18 varieties and have peaches all summer long. Okay. Okay, I don't want to go into much detail here if I don't need to. You know, you probably have talked about some of this in some of your other classes and that. One thing I do want to mention right here is the diameter of the hole that we're going to be planting our tree in. 2 to 3 times the diameter of the hole. And so if this root ball right here is 2 feet, I want to make sure that hole is 4 to 6 feet wide. Okay, that's going to guarantee that those roots are going to start growing out into that soil. Backfill with the native soil. I don't like to add a lot of amendments in that in there, in the hole. And I'm going to water it in, and I'm going to make sure that that tree is about level with the existing ground right there. A lot of times people will come in, they'll dig the hole deeper, they'll put the soil back in, and then that tree will settle. And then they'll come back in and put more soil up there. And a lot of times, remember there was that graft union that we had. If that goes down below the soil line right there, if the tree doesn't die, if it is a, you know, like a dwarf or a semi-dwarf tree and that sends out roots, now all of a sudden we've got a big tree because we've superseded the rootstock for the dwarfiness, okay? Yes?
So we keep being pounded into our head, organic matter, then how come you wouldn't add more organic matter while you plant your tree?
Because as homeowners, it seems like a lot of times too that we love things to death, and especially when I get talking about watering here in just a minute, you know, that tree needs a drink every day whether it rained or not. And so the same thing, that first picture I showed you of the trees on the bench there in Box Elder County, that's some of the rockiest soil I've seen. In fact, if you've ever had to dig a hole to put a fruit tree in it, you get tired really quick. And a lot of times too, if we you know, heavy clay soils and things like that, if we don't shave the sides and we create an artificial habitat, a lot of times those roots will just circle around on us and they're not willing to, you know, spread out like they need to and move through it. So I don't like to put a lot of organic matter in there. Yeah.
Plus, a lot of that organic matter, it's going to decay in a year or so. And so what you have then is a tree that settles farther down and continues to settle farther down in the hole. And then, like you said, then you go and you add more soil to it. Pretty soon you've buried the tree and it's going to kill it.
So it's better to put the native soil in, maybe a little bit of organic matter, but then...
No organic matter at all.
I don't like it, yeah.
The holes that you put back in it. And the benefit in having the hole really wide is that you eliminate the compaction and stuff that's around that, so those roots will spread out into there.
And get good anchorage.
The organic matter actually discourages them from exploring the native soil that they have to spread into at some point in the near future.
So then in the future, after, while it's growing, then you put your organic matter?
You can put a mulch on top of it, yeah.
Till it in, you'll till up the roots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that.
Quick question, if you did not dig it out far enough around, is there any way that you can loosen that soil to make it? I mean, I feel like I did it pretty.
I mean, if that tree's been in and it's established, you know, a couple of years, just leave it.
It's only like a year in, so what do I do? I mean, I think I did, but I'm not sure if it's that far out.
If you're that stressed over it and you're losing sleep,
No, I'm not.
okay, then just leave it.
Okay, I
Okay.
just wondered if you needed to kind of aerate it or anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody else have a question? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on then. Okay, so we've gone to the store, we bought our trees, we brought them home. The day we bring that tree home is the day that we want to start training and pruning that tree. I see so many trees that, you know, the homeowner will tell me, you know, they'll come into my office and they'll say, I've got this tree that I bought and I planted, and I haven't done anything to it because I've been scared to touch it for the last 10 years. How do I prune it? Or maybe it's 20 years. One cut. You know, you find the base right here and just you cut it out and go get your new tree. Okay, so, you know, we've got our tree, we brought it back from the nursery, and now we're going to plant it. We've planted it, we watered it in, and now we want to start shaping it and pruning it. So typically what I like to look for, if I'm doing a peach tree or a nectarine, or actually you could prune, I've seen almost every fruit tree pruned to what's called an open vase, open center system. Okay? And so I'll just show you that. What I like to look for with this system is I want to find branches that are coming off at kind of right angles to the trunk. Okay? That are somewhere between my knee and my hip height. Okay? So this, you know, down there is a little bit shy, but we'll pretend that these first branches are right there. Okay? And what I'm going to do, so if I look at them, well, I'll tell you what, let's try and prune them off with the slide advance there. Let's see. So maybe I take off those two, and now I've got 4 of them that are coming off fairly good to each other, and I'm going to come in and took the top out of it. Okay?
That's hard to do.
That's hard, isn't it? Because I just spent $30 and I just got rid of 25 of it right there. Okay? When
Beautiful, that's perfect. Right?
okay, now what I may look at it and say is, okay, because this one's a little bit bigger, this is a little bit longer, what I might do is just come in and shorten that one up. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to flip that. To tell you to wear your safety glass today. Okay, now we've got really good spacing there on them. You know, that tree's right in that general area right there, and I'm starting my training process with that. What's going to happen is these branches are going to develop into kind of my main scaffolding branches, and over time I'm probably going to come in and make some heading cuts right here so that that will fork out. Just so maybe I have something like this, and I come in, and if that branch was right there, to where now I start forking that out, and then I get out here and I make another fork, and because what I'm trying to do with this method is this tree's like pretend it's like a great big solar collector. I want to spread it out. I want to expose it to as much sunlight as possible. And I do that through those pruning cuts. Now, if I wait until this tree is 10 years old, okay, it's pretty hard. In fact, if I take this branch and if this was coming off the trunk of my tree, I can't, this is 1 year's worth of growth. It's hard to bend. And so when it's something like this, now I don't want my branches totally flat. There needs to be a little bit of angle there to them. But you can see in the picture right here, if they're going really upright, when they're like this, I can bend them down. I can put a spreader in there. Maybe I get a nylon stocking and put some sand in it, hang over it. I get a piece of twine and pull it this way, because you know, that one's a little bit close, so I'm going to put some, you know, and I can do that when it's young. When this has about 2 years worth of growth in it, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm too late. Okay?
We call that open center.
Open center, open base. Yep. Because, you know, I've just taken the trunk out of it. Okay, yes?
So do you consider that a good angle right there for them to be going?
Yeah, that's pretty decent for right now. The nice thing about pruning is if I'm doing it every year, you know, maybe I leave 6 branches in here. And next year I come back and look at it and say, you know what, okay, it's time to remove one of them. And I can do that. And to where eventually I have the shape that I want with the tree. And like I said, it's really hard to do justice in teaching pruning and that right here. And so I really encourage you to go to some of the pruning workshops because they can show you this method. But I just kind of want to show you that because a couple of the slides that I have here have a drop-down, gorgeous-looking peach tree in it, okay? Yes?
Can you prune cherries and apples and all those the same way?
You can. I've seen them done that way, yeah.
Well, how do you know when to prune?
Okay. Hold on. We'll get to that. Okay. Okay, so here's kind of a summary chart for spacing our trees out. So standard apple, we're going to have them out every 30 to 40 feet in row, and then the next row is going to be about 30, 40 feet. My semi-dwarf, well, let's see, standard apples there. Here's a standard pear. Here's a standard, you know, apricot can be bigger than that, standard. So you'll notice that even in these standard trees right here, I've got a lot of variation in how big they're going to get in my spacing and what it should be. Okay? Semi-apple, semi-dwarf apple is going to be about every 12 to 15 feet. Okay, so these are, I have people say, oh, can I take and put my peaches every 10 feet apart? Yeah, you can do it. What's going to be some concerns or some things? Overlapping, crowding. I'm going to have to prune a little more vigorously. I'm going to not have to be asleep when I'm doing that. So can it be done? Yeah.